Well, it's potentially very significant, Jamie. It seems to be a rare outbreak of bipartisanship to some extent in what has been a very politically driven process. Basically, a Republican senator called Jeff Flake has backed down to some extent and said that he wants to see an FBI investigation because that's what the Democrats have been calling for. So he's saying that he'll back the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to go to the full Senate for a vote on condition that there's a one-week delay while the FBI investigates the allegations which have been made against Kavanaugh. Now, it was, as you say, a bit chaotic at the end of that, so it wasn't clear exactly what had been agreed, but it does seem that the committee as a whole is prepared to grant that one-week delay. Senator Flake himself said he understood it wouldn't mean that Democrats would necessarily vote for Kavanaugh after all this, but he said at least they wouldn't be able to complain that there'd been no proper investigation. However, it would be time limited. It would be just 1 week maximum for the investigators to look into these allegations, not just by Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, but also by two other women who've come forward. But it does mean that this controversial, ever-politicised process has taken another twist. So there will be, it seems, a pause. As things had stood, it looked like early next week there'd be a full Senate vote without the evidence having been properly examined, according to the critics at least. Now there will be at least a one-week delay before the Senate decides whether Brett Kavanaugh can be the next Supreme Court Justice. And presumably this will slightly minimise his chances because it gives more people time to come forward with material against him if they have it. Has to be said, though, he's still denying any suggestion of wrongdoing.
John, is it not possible that we might have an FBI investigation, limited in time and scope, and we're back here in 7 days' time? No further evidence is forthcoming, and senators are presented with the same scenario. They have to decide who they believe.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the difference would be that there would have been an investigation, a proper FBI investigation into the claims. And that's what the Democrats have been seeking, because they say, OK, Christine Blasey Ford has come forward, Kavanaugh's denied her allegations, but it's just one person's word against the others. There's been no independent investigation. No one's gone out to look for corroborating evidence of either side. So it would be different in the sense that at least the senators could feel that they were armed with more facts. Now, whether a week's long enough for a full investigation, that's something I'm not qualified to say. But it does mean that there will be an FBI investigation, and that's very significant. If after the end of that, even though it's only a week, if after the end of that investigation the FBI come back and say we found no evidence that suggests Kavanaugh's guilty of wrongdoing, then the Republicans and possibly some Democrats will be able to go ahead with his confirmation with a clear conscience.
John, I'm just looking at those demonstrators behind you who were there just a few moments ago. I'm guessing they're pretty typical of the sense of anger, the divisive anger across the United States on this issue at the moment.
That's right. I mean, this is an issue that's really polarized America, not just here in the so-called Washington bubble, but nationwide. And these are protesters against the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh, not just because of the allegations of these three women who've come forward, but because of his views on, or perceived views on, issues such as abortion. They fear that he'll make the Supreme Court a more conservative arena, which could undo legislation which allows abortion. So they were opposed to him in the first place. The fuel has been added to the fire by the allegations of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and the two other women. But as well as these protests, there have been other protests on behalf of Brett Kavanaugh. He has got a lot of support, be under no doubt about that. Opinion is very, very split. You saw the testimonies on Thursday. Very hard, I mean, both were very compelling in their own ways. So hard to say who was telling the truth, but obviously one of them was not.
John Brain in Washington for the moment. Thank you very much. Let's talk